Hello adventurers and Dungeon and Dragon lovers. Welcome to another chapter of the Adventures of the Sword Coast. And this time it is chapter 7, Secret Weapon of the Gnomes. If you're new to this whole series, then let me tell you that we had a campaign, Season 1, Adventures of Sword Coast, and per chapter, in these videos I'll make a summary of the events that happen in a podcast kind of way, where Ashley and Isaac will talk you through the events that happen per chapter. If you are interested in listening to the full podcast, go to Spotify, iTunes, any podcast that you like, or even our website www.dansimworld.nl, where you can listen to the full podcast, but every session is about 3 hours in length. So this is just a nice way to listen to the events without needing to listen to the whole 3 hours, even though I definitely would suggest to do so. Because we are now already in Season 2, and next week, Friday, the 11th of April, we will upload Chapter 6 of the new season, Season 2. Nevertheless, Secret Weapon of the Gnomes, a quest from the Dragon of Icespire Peak. And it definitely goes differently than that I expected. They encountered something before they should have encountered it. And in the end as well, they did something very smart and let the gnomes make a contraption for them, which I also did not anticipate. So the players were smarter than I anticipated in this session. But nonetheless, very well, and that deserved well-deserved inspiration. Now I'm going to hand you over to Ashley and Isaac. Take it away.
Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. Today we have something kind of different. We're going to be taking a look at a D&D transcript.
All right, sounds fun.
Yeah, you provided this one. It is from the Dan and Dragons YouTube channel, and it's Chapter 7 specifically,
Okay.
Secret Weapon of the Gnomes.
I like it already.
Yeah, so we're going to go beyond just what happened in the game and really look at some of the decisions that the players made.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
moments that really reveal what the characters are like, and maybe even some broader takeaways that we can apply to our own lives.
You know, because D&D is really all about choices, right? And it's about how those choices play out, not just in terms of the rules of the game, but also in terms of how the characters develop and the story unfolds.
Exactly, and the group in this transcript consists of Ara the Elf Cleric,
Okay,
Sephin the Aasimar Paladin,
got it.
and Demos the Tiefling Hexblade Warlock, and
Interesting combo.
yeah, and they're led, of course, by their Dungeon Master.
Right, so we've got a good mix of classes there, so it'll be interesting to see how they approach different challenges.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
All right, so to set the stage here, our adventurers are heading south toward the Sword Mountains. They've just encountered a manticore
Oh, wow.
here at Dabra's Hill, and they also get a pretty ominous warning about a white dragon being in the area.
White dragon, that's serious business.
Yeah.
That's not something you want to mess with.
No, not at all. And on their way, they come across a dwarven excavation site.
Okay.
Of course, being adventurers, they can't just pass by without getting involved.
Of course not. That's how these things go.
Exactly. So they decide to help out these two dwarves who are having a bit of a pest problem.
Oh, what kind of pest problem?
Ogre jellies.
Ogre jellies. Yuck. That sounds messy.
Yeah. In a nearby temple, a classic dungeon crawl scenario.
Yeah, gotta love those. And what do they get for their trouble?
Well, as a reward, they receive a pair of sending stones, which we know are going to be important later.
Very useful for communication, especially when you're dealing with a potentially world-ending threat like a white dragon.
Yeah, exactly. But, of course, no good deed goes unpunished, right?
Right.
As they're leaving this excavation, they're confronted by 3 orcs blocking their path.
Classic D&D encounter, right?
And this is where the transcript really starts to get good, because it shows us how this group handles a very potentially hostile situation.
Yeah. How do they react?
Well, one of the orcs gets straight to the point and asks what valuables the party has.
All right, so they're not messing around.
Nope. And Sephin decides to try and intimidate them.
Bold move.
Yeah, but keep in mind, they are covered in slime and blood from fighting the ogre jellies.
Okay, so not exactly the most intimidating look, perhaps.
And they try to use that to their advantage, flexing, showing off their bloodied sword.
And how do the orcs respond to this display?
Well, not quite, with the fear that Sephin was probably hoping for.
I can imagine.
They're mostly confused.
They're probably like, what is going on here?
Which is such a great reminder that what one person or one being finds intimidating another might just find weird.
Absolutely. It all depends on perspective and cultural context.
So intimidation fails, and Sefin pivots to try and negotiate.
Okay, so what do they offer?
They offer information about some ruins nearby, suggesting that it would be a perfect ambush site.
Ah, so a strategic alliance of sorts?
They even swear on Groom's one eye.
Groom's one eye. Now, who is that exactly?
I don't know.
Sounds like a colorful character.
Maybe a deity, maybe something else entirely, but either way, it doesn't really convince the orcs.
They're not buying it.
Nope, they're still super suspicious.
So what's the sticking point here?
Well, the orcs want to know what the party has right now.
They're not interested in future prospects.
No, it's very transactional.
Immediate gain.
And when Sefin then readies their great axe, any chance of a peaceful resolution just disappears.
That's probably not the best signal to send in a tense negotiation.
No, it's a very clear threat, and the orcs feeling threatened, they attack.
All right, so combat begins, and the transcript actually gives us a really detailed account of how this fight plays out.
It does. It's like we're right there in the middle of the action.
Perfect for our deep dive, then.
So the first thing that happens is initiative is rolled.
Okay, so that determines the order in which everyone acts in combat.
Exactly. And orc number 3 goes first and tries to attack Deimos, but misses.
Okay, a lucky break.
But then orc number 1 manages to hit Sefin for 10 slashing damage.
Ouch. So the fight is on, and Sefin's already taken a hit.
Yeah, Ara jumps in next, attacking orc number 2 with her longsword dealing 10 damage.
Nice counterattack.
And then Deimos follows up with a Scorching Ray.
Now, Scorching Ray, for those who don't know, is a spell that shoots out multiple beams of fire at a target.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
And in this case, Deimos rolls really well, hitting orc number 2 3 times,
Oh,
dealing a total of 24 fire damage.
that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, that's enough to take out one of the orcs immediately. It really shows the potential for spellcasters to deal a lot of damage in a single turn. And then things get even more intense when Sefin attacks orc number 1 with their great axe.
They actually sever the orc's arm.
Wow, that's brutal.
Yeah, and cause a lot of blood loss.
The transcript doesn't shy away from the details.
It's pretty vivid.
Yeah, you can really picture the scene.
Orc number 3, seeing this, gets enraged and tries to reach Sefin, jumping over the body of the fallen orc.
Driven by fury.
But Deimos, showing some really quick reflexes, manages an unarmed strike as the orc jumps past.
That's impressive.
Just 1 damage, but it's enough to knock the orc prone right on top of the other injured orc.
Oh, that's got to be painful and also really disadvantageous in combat.
Yeah, being prone gives you a lot of penalties.
Gives me to an easier target.
Exactly. And that's pretty much the end for these orcs.
Yeah, the tide has turned.
Sefin, with advantage against the prone orc, chops off both of its legs.
Okay, so no coming back from that.
No. Ara initially tries to switch to a longbow, but realizes she's too close and switches back to her sword, but misses.
Sometimes the simplest option is best.
And then Deimos just ends it, scoring a critical hit with a short sword on the prone orc, and then finishing off orc number 3 with an eldritch blast.
So a swift and decisive victory for the party.
Yeah, but not without its brutality.
No, definitely not. And what do they do next?
Well, they loot the bodies, of course, finding some silver and gold pieces.
The spoils of war.
But then Sefin does something a little extra.
What's that?
They decapitate one of the orcs and tie the head to their belt.
Okay. A bit morbid, but I guess that's Sefin for you.
Yeah, it's definitely a statement.
Definitely gives us some insight into their personality.
So now they have to decide what to do next.
Okay.
They talk about whether to go back to town or continue east towards those rock gnomes.
The plot thickens.
They decide to rest up and then travel to what sounds like Gnomengarde.
Based on later contact.
Right, and then eventually head back to Phandalin.
So it seems like the possibility of getting help from the gnomes, especially with that white dragon threat, is a big factor in their decision.
Definitely, they need all the help they can get.
Okay, so they head back to the dwarven excavation to rest up, and Sefon, being Sefon, decides to joke with the dwarves about the whole orc slaying thing.
Of course.
Can't let a good deed go unmentioned.
Meanwhile, Demos, being a little bit more practical, decides to try and learn some Dwarvish.
Always a good idea to learn the local languages.
Yeah, it could come in handy.
Especially when you're dealing with different cultures.
So Deimos manages to learn the phrase for, "Hello, I am a friend."
A good start.
And in return, the dwarves give him some interesting information.
What do they share?
Well, they mention that the excavation seemed mostly looted, but that there might be some treasure hidden in secret compartments.
Ooh, treasure.
Possibly in the pillars.
Interesting. So they're giving the party a little bit of a side quest here.
Yeah, a little breadcrumb to follow.
And what about the rock gnomes? Do the dwarves have any insights on them?
They do. They describe them as inventive and hardworking.
Okay, good qualities.
They say they live in caves behind a waterfall to the southeast, and that they're ruled by 2 kings.
2 kings? That's unusual.
Yeah, and they also say that the gnomes are like their little nephews, but also that they can be a bit suspicious and a little bit crazy.
Suspicious and crazy. That's an interesting combination.
It definitely paints a picture.
It sets the stage for an interesting encounter, for sure.
The next morning brings a bit of a mixed bag for the group.
How so?
Well, Deimos goes to drink from their water skin and finds that it's turned to mud.
Well, how did that happen?
No explanation, really. It's just mud now.
That's D&D for you sometimes.
Yeah, and Demos actually takes 1 mental damage from this.
Oh, no, that's rough.
But on the other hand, Seven finds some snake meat and decides to eat it.
Snake meat, okay. Not my first choice, but all right.
And this actually grants them inspiration.
Oh, interesting. So in D&D, that means they get to re-roll a die if they need to.
Exactly. So it could be really helpful later on.
Definitely a lucky break.
And then Seven decides to play a little prank on the dwarves.
What kind of prank?
They carry one of the dead orcs back to the dwarves' camp.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the dwarves are understandably terrified.
I can imagine that was quite a sight.
Not exactly a friendly gesture.
So much for good relations.
But then Demos remembers what the dwarves said about treasure being hidden in the pillars.
Okay, good memory.
Stefan checks one out, but doesn't find anything.
So close.
But Demos tries a different pillar and notices a smooth section.
Ah, the telltale sign of a secret compartment.
And they find it.
What's inside?
15 gemstones.
Wow.
Worth 10 gold each.
That's 150 gold. That's a significant find.
Yeah, not bad for a little bit of exploration.
Definitely a nice reward for paying attention to details.
So with their newfound wealth, the party leaves the still panicked dwarves behind.
I bet they were glad to see them go.
And they head off towards Gnomengarde, keeping the Sword Mountains to their right.
Following those directions from the dwarves?
Mm-hmm. The journey itself is pretty uneventful until they hear a waterfall in the distance.
The sound of rushing water always makes for a dramatic entrance.
And when they reach the waterfall, the scene is described in detail.
Set the scene for us.
A roaring cascade of water, a shallow pool with these strange mushroom-covered islands.
Mushroom-covered islands now, that's unusual.
Yeah, they're red, green, and purple.
Very colorful.
And there are several cave openings.
Okay, so this is clearly not your average cave system.
And Demos, with an amazing investigation roll,
Natural 20.
identifies the properties of these mushrooms.
Okay, so what are they?
Red for oil, green for bread, and purple for wine.
Wine. Now that's something I can get behind.
Demos is immediately interested in those purple mushrooms,
I can imagine.
gathering as many as they can.
Smart move, always stock up on supplies.
They even discard 3 javelins to make more room.
Wow, that's dedication.
Now, finding the entrance to the gnome's home proves to be a little bit more tricky.
How so?
Well, Sephin and Demos decide to try the most obvious route,
Which is?
swimming behind the waterfall.
Seems logical.
But they just find a rock wall.
Ah, so the gnomes have hidden their entrance well?
Yeah, it's not that easy.
So what do they do next?
Sephin tries to climb up a ledge, but rolls a natural one
Oh no, a critical fail.
and falls, taking 2 damage.
This gotta hurt.
But Ara manages to climb up successfully and spots an opening above.
Okay, so they're getting closer.
She drops a rope down for the others. Sephin fumbles the catch at first,
Oh no.
but then rolls a natural 20 on their athletics check and climbs up.
So from critical fail to critical success.
Yeah, they're in.
But what awaits them inside?
Well, Sephin enters a cave and immediately comes face to face with a contraption that has 4 automatic crossbows.
Let's talk about a warm welcome.
And it's being operated by a gnome
Oh no.
who promptly shoots at Sephin.
Not very hospitable.
No, Sephin takes 2 piercing damage.
Ouch, that's gotta sting.
But they react quickly, throwing a javelin and hitting the gnome in the shoulder,
Nice shot.
which disables the device.
That was a close one.
And then, in a surprising move, Sephin pulls out the javelin and uses lay on hands to heal the gnome.
What a turn of events from attacking to healing in the span of a few moments.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Perhaps an attempt to make amends, or at least show that they're not entirely hostile.
Maybe, but the gnome just yells in an unknown language and points south.
So not much progress on the communication front.
No. Meanwhile, Demos is exploring a nearby hallway and finds 2 gnomes on a ledge.
Okay, a different approach.
Demos decides to try a more diplomatic route. They bow respectfully and ask for shelter and help against the white dragon.
A more reasonable request.
They specifically mention the mayor of Sambalin's suggestion to seek out the gnomes.
Name dropping can be helpful.
And the gnomes acknowledge that they have problems of their own.
As they do.
But they give Deimos directions.
Where to?
To a specific corridor, tell them to cross the water and to speak with Thimblesnout and Dibbldew.
Thimblesnout and Dibbldew, got it.
In the workshop.
Okay, so some key figures to look out for.
While all of this is going on, Ara has gone straight ahead and found a room full of barrels.
A room full of barrels, it sounds intriguing.
It is. But as she starts to examine them, one of the barrels turns out to be a mimic.
Oh no, that's a classic D&D monster.
And it attacks Ara just as Safan enters the room.
Talk about bad timing.
Yeah, it's a dangerous situation.
So how does this fight play out?
The mimic attacks Ara with its pseudopod tongue,
Gross.
dealing 8 damage and grappling her.
So she's restrained, can't get away.
Sephin attacks the mimic's tongue with their great axe, dealing 12 damage and causing it to release Ara.
That's gotta hurt.
But then the mimic turns on Sephin and grapples them instead.
Oh no, they're trading places.
Ara tries to attack the mimic, pushing her longsword into its mouth.
A risky move.
Yeah, she deals 6 damage, but her sword gets stuck.
Oh, that's not good.
And Deimos, hearing the sounds of a fight, arrives and blasts the mimic with Eldritch Blast, dealing 11 damage.
Deimos to the rescue again.
The mimic tries to bite Ara with the sword still in its mouth.
That's gotta be awkward even for a mimic.
Sephin attacks the mimic's head with their great axe, dealing 7 damage, but their axe also gets stuck.
Oh no, they're both stuck now.
Deimos blasts the mimic again with Eldritch Blast, this time dealing 12 damage and killing it.
Finally.
And Deimos actually regains some temporary hit points from that.
Nice little bonus.
They search the mimic's remains, but there's nothing of value.
No treasure this time.
Deimos does take the opportunity to fill 4 water skins with that purple mushroom wine.
Always thinking ahead.
And Safan tries to cut off the mimic's tongue, but it's too strong.
So no gruesome trophy this time.
They rejoin Deimos, and he tells them about the other gnomes they met.
Right, the ones who pointed them in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And as they pass those 2 gnomes on the ledge, they mention that they defeated a shapeshifter.
Which is technically true.
And the gnomes are very happy to hear this.
They're probably thinking good riddance.
They tell them to continue on to the workshop, but as they're crossing a hanging bridge, Deimos runs into another trap.
What is it this time?
Large spinning blades.
That sounds dangerous.
It is. Deimos takes 8 slicing damage. They ask the 2 gnomes on the ledge to turn it off.
Makes sense.
But the gnomes explain that the controls are on the other side, and they can't get to them because of the blades.
So they're stuck.
One of the gnomes goes to find someone who can help, and eventually, another gnome shows up and deactivates the blades remotely.
Technology to the rescue.
Finally, they reach the workshop and meet Thimblesnout and Dibbldew.
The gnome representatives.
And these 2 are ecstatic to hear about the defeated shapeshifter.
I bet they are.
They explained that the mimic had been driving their King Corbo mad,
Poor king.
causing him to lock himself and the other king, King Knackle, in their bedroom.
Out of fear of the shapeshifter.
The party quickly explains their mission to defeat the White Dragon and asks about any items that might help.
They need all the help they can get.
But Thimblesnout says that it's ultimately up to the king to decide.
Fair enough.
He agrees to take them to King Corbo's chambers.
All right, so they're going to meet the king.
As they approach the bedroom door, they hear a panicked voice yelling for them to stay away.
The king is still afraid.
He thinks they might be the shapeshifter.
Understandably paranoid.
Deimos manages to convince him that they actually defeated the mimic by describing it in detail.
Putting those observation skills to good use.
And King Corbo cautiously opens the door.
What do they see?
King Corbo and King Knackle.
Both of them.
Well, King Knackle is stuck to a chair with glue.
Oh no, how did that happen?
No explanation given.
It's just the kind of thing that happens in D&D.
King Corbo explains his paranoia and his attempts to free King Knackle.
I bet that's been fun.
And Deimos tries to help but rolls a natural 1 on a strength check.
Oh dear, another critical fail.
And ends up pulling King Knackle chair all across the room.
Oh no, that's gotta be embarrassing.
King Corbo is a little bit embarrassed, but thanks him for their help anyway.
I guess any help is appreciated at this point.
He offers them a place to rest for the night and says they can talk about the dragon in the morning.
A sensible plan.
So they're led to a round chamber with alcoves containing small beds where other gnomes are sleeping.
the gnome dormitory.
And they get a long rest.
Much needed after all that excitement.
They wake up the next morning, surrounded by curious gnomes.
Word has spread about the heroes who defeated the shapeshifter.
And they're taken to the throne room.
For an audience with the kings.
It's described as having 2 thrones made out of scrap metal.
Very gnome-like.
King Corbo is sitting on one, and King Knackle, who's still a little bit unsteady, is on the other.
Still recovering from that glue incident.
Thimblesnout and Dibble-Doo are standing behind them.
They're advisors.
King Corbo expresses his gratitude for them defeating the shapeshifter.
They saved the kingdom from terror.
And he presents them with 4 gifts.
Oh, what are they?
A clockwork amulet.
What does that do?
It allows the wearer to forego rolling a d20 for an attack roll, once per long rest, and take a result of 10 instead.
Interesting. So it guarantees a decent hit, but not spectacular.
Then there's a pole of collapsing.
A pole of collapsing. What's that?
It's a 10-foot pole that can collapse into a 1-foot rod and back with command words.
Sounds useful for tight spaces.
Yeah, dungeons.
Oh, boy.
Then there's a hat of wizardry.
Ooh, a magic hat.
It's an antique cone-shaped hat that allows the wearer to cast any cantrip from the wizard spell list once per long rest by making an intelligence check.
So a limited use magic item, but still potentially useful.
And finally, a wand of pyrotechnics.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
It has 7 charges and can create bursts of multicolored light and crackling noise.
Okay, so more for show than combat.
Yeah, not exactly what they were hoping for.
I can imagine they were expecting something a little more dragon slaying.
Sephin does kind of hint at that,
Trying to be diplomatic.
but they do thank the king for the gifts.
And King Knackle, how is he reacting?
He seems a little put out by Demos.
Still holding a grudge about the chair incident?
Maybe King Corbo says that any further trade negotiations have to be done with Thimblesnout and Dibble-Doo.
So back to the workshop they go.
The kings bid them farewell.
And it's back to business.
Back in the workshop, Sephin asks about improving their armor.
Makes sense they need better protection against a dragon.
But the gnomes say that they might be mistaking them for dwarves.
Ah, so not blacksmiths.
Not really.
More inventors and tinkerers.
The party discusses their disappointment with the gifts.
They were hoping for something more dragon-specific.
And then Demos has an idea.
What is it?
They suggest recreating that automatic crossbow turret they saw.
On a wheeled cart.
To make it mobile.
Ah, so they can use it to defend against the dragon in Phandalin.
Exactly.
That's a pretty clever idea.
Thimblesnout and Dibble-Doo love the idea.
The gnomes love their contraptions.
They agree to work on it, but say it'll take more than a week.
That's a long time.
Demos gives them 2 gold pieces to get started.
A little investment.
And Demos receives inspiration for this.
Well deserved.
So they leave Gnomengarde and see the gnomes already working on the turret design.
Eager to get started.
As they travel back towards Phandalin, they hear a distant roar.
The dragon.
A reminder of the threat they're facing.
It's a chilling sound.
Night falls and a fog rolls in, making visibility very low.
Setting the scene for an ambush?
And that's exactly what happens.
What kind of ambush?
Gwatsafon's wolf companion growls a warning.
Loyal companion.
And a pack of 4 wolves appears.
Out of the fog.
A leader and 3 others.
Classic D&D encounter.
Ara immediately casts Bless on herself, Sephin, and Demos.
Giving them a bonus to their attack rolls and saving throws.
Seph attacks and kills one of the wolves with their great axe using the Bless bonus.
A swift strike?
Gwat attacks the wolf leader, biting its neck and dealing 10 damage.
Gwat's not messing around.
One of the wolves attacks Sephin, hitting for 4 piercing damage.
Ouch.
Ara tries to use animal friendship on the wolf leader,
To try and calm it down.
but it fails its saving throw.
So the spell doesn't work.
She moves closer to Gwat.
For protection.
Another wolf attacks Gwat, dealing 6 piercing damage.
This is getting intense.
The wounded wolf leader tries to attack Sephin again, but misses.
Still weakened from that first attack.
And then Demos casts Scorching Ray,
Unleashing the fire again.
killing 1 wolf and hitting another twice for a total of 7 fire damage.
Wow, that's gotta hurt.
It sets the wolf on fire, but doesn't quite kill it.
Still alive.
The burning wolf tries to flee, and Sephin takes an opportunity attack as it runs away,
Not letting it get away.
wounding it further.
Taking advantage of every opportunity.
Another wolf attacks Sephin, biting their arm for 8 damage and latching on.
That's gotta be painful.
Sephin shakes the wolf off and attacks it, wounding it.
Not giving up.
Gwat attacks the wounded wolf leader again and finally kills it,
Finishing the job.
and immediately starts eating it.
Well, they gotta eat too.
Ara attacks and kills the wolf near Sephin.
Cleaning up the remaining threats.
The last wolf attacks Sephin but misses.
Still trying.
Ara casts Sanctuary on Gwat.
protecting their companion.
The wolf tries to attack Quat, but fails its saving throw because of the sanctuary spell.
The spell is working.
Demos casts Scorching Ray at the remaining wolf, killing it.
Another one down.
The wolf that was latched onto Sephin attacks again, but misses, and Sephin attacks back, wounding it.
Almost done.
Quat attacks and kills it.
That's the last one.
The fight is over.
A hard-fought victory.
And because Grat was so protective of Sephin during the fight, Sephin gains advantage on future animal handling checks with Quat.
That's a nice bonus. Their bond is strengthening.
They continue through the night and finally reach Phandalin early in the morning.
Back to civilization.
But they immediately notice something's different.
What is it?
There are increased security measures around the town.
That's ominous. What do you think it means?
Well, it definitely suggests that something has happened while they were away.
Perhaps news of the White Dragon has reached Phandalin.
Maybe. Or something else entirely.
Maybe.
We'll have to wait and see what happens next.
Exactly. So this deep dive into your D&D session transcript has been really fascinating.
It has. We've seen some great combat, some clever thinking, and some really interesting character moments.
We've learned a lot about Sephin's unique approach to negotiation and their love of collecting trophies.
Demos' knack for finding treasure, and their taste for unusual beverages.
And Ara's dependable magic and tactical skills.
And of course, the gnomes, with their inventive spirit and somewhat questionable gifts, have provided a really intriguing solution to the dragon problem.
The mobile crossbow turret is definitely a game changer.
I'd like to see how that turns out.
Definitely. But for now, we're left with some big questions.
What does this heightened security in Phandalin mean?
Is it related to the dragon or something else entirely?
How will the party use those strange gifts from the gnomes?
Will they prove to be more useful than they seem?
And of course, when will that mobile turret be ready?
And will it be enough to face a white dragon?
Only time will tell.
As you continue your game, think about the lessons we've discussed here. Pay attention to the details, and always be prepared for the unexpected.
You never know what secret compartments you might find.
Or what challenges you might face.
Until next time, happy adventuring.